I'm going to model 711 Boylston Street using Revit architecture. Start a new project, and always start a project with the architecture template unless you need to describe the structure of the basement and other layers like that. Otherwise you create an unnecessary levels. We're going to use the AutoCAD drawing as an underlay. From the insert menu, insert deals with things external to Revit. We're going to link to a CAD file, always link to a CAD file, not don't import a CAD file, otherwise it brings in unnecessary geometry. When you import a CAD file, it is pinned by default or locked in place. You need to unlock it in order to move it. We're going to move it to inside the elevation symbols, which are compass marks. This indicates the view plane. The arrows indicate the direction in which your model is going to be viewed. Some amount of interpretation of this drawing is going to have to be conducted. Right? We're looking at what appears to be a grid-based structure with interior columns and what appear to be exterior columns or pilasters embedded in the walls. I'm going to model those first. I'm going to model each column as a simple mass described by this profile, which is about 1.5 feet square. We can verify that by dimensioning. Yeah. Right. And then these other columns are circular. I've dimensioned the diameter, the radius of one of these columns. Now, we're not going to pretend that we're actually modeling to a precision of 30/2 of an inch. We're not trying to land somebody on the moon. So we're going to go into Manage Units and just change the level of precision. Generally, you want to do this unless you're modeling kitchen interior. Some millwork is very unforgiving. One of these is units, sorry. Let's pause here so you don't have to. This is a grid-based structure, so we need to create grid lines. From the architecture menu, select the grid element. I'm going to start drawing from the bottom. You can see that it snaps to the center lines in the model. This is a regular grid. I could array them. Notice that the pilasters don't correspond to the interior grid. So there's a different spatial organization to the exterior structural elements. This one almost aligns, but doesn't. So there really is no correspondence. We could change the numbers to letters. afterwards. You don't have to watch me do all this. I'll finish it and then come back. I've just about finished placing the grid lines. I notice a mistake in this drawing. Sometimes you get that. Notice the grid line A is not quite through the structure columns that it should be. I'm going to take it and move it where it belongs. I'm not sure why every now and then you'll have a drawing that's slightly defective. That's not your fault. So we will, let's move that to the center of those columns, what appears to be the center of those columns. So A is actually this dimension between these. I suspect that this is the correct interval. I'll pause here, fix that problem, then we'll start drawing columns. I think I'm done with the column grid. We put grid line A where it belongs. Now we need to get a height to from floor to floor. We'll get it here from the elevation drawing. Looks like floor 2 is 15. Place that dimension. So I'm going to go in Revit architecture. I'm going to go to an elevation view and let's pull up the project browser. Go to the elevation view. I've made this rather narrow so that I can record it. So that's why the project browser seems compressed. Any elevation view will do. I should change level 2 to 15. Very easy. Alright, so now I can use as a top constraint for the columns level 2. They'll be drawn on base level 1. The top constraint will be level 2. If it changes, we can change that. Control Tab, back to the previous view. Okay, start drawing columns. I'll probably pause as I do this. I should mention you need snap points for the exterior columns. The grid lines only correspond curiously to the interior columns, but not to the exterior ones on Exeter Street. So I'll have to draw some lines in these square column outlines in order to be able to snap to them. So let me do that now with some 2D lines. Annotate. Detail line. We can change the line style to lines because I know that has a green color. You can see it'll snap to midpoint of some existing line there. So I'm going to use that. You'll see in a minute why that comes in handy. Often you have to do a lot of 2D drawing in Revit, to the chagrin of many students here. But it's part of understanding the drawing that you're making, that you're constructing. You're just snapping to the midpoint of the lines that have been drawn in AutoCAD. Okay, now I have snap points for all my columns. Architecture column, choose architectural column. We don't need structural ones. We have a rectangular column 18 by 18. You can see. Let's place these. It infers alignment to the columns I just drew, so that's convenient. I think these detail lines are helping me as much as I thought they would. No matter, we can go back into it. I'm going to go over this live with the entire class anyway. This is a round column, so I'm just going to place it in and substitute it afterwards. Grid lines, intersection of grid lines are easy. Intersection of grid line. I don't need this. Well, yeah, this is back of house, so we're not going to bother with that part of the model. We have some square columns, and no, these are column bases. So we want, what did we determine? Those are 10-inch round columns. So let's go back to architecture column. We don't have a round type loaded, so I'm going to go to Insert, Load Family, Columns, Round Column. Easy. We have these other articulated shapes, Doric. We're ignoring that level of detail at this point. We're just going in to do this structure. There's a 6-inch diameter by default. We don't have a 10-inch, so we will duplicate, rename, and change the properties of this type to create our 10-inch. So duplicate the 6-inch diameter, call it a 10-inch diameter, okay, and change its thickness, its diameter, to 10, so we can begin using it immediately. Looks a bit bigger than it should be. That's easy enough to change. So we don't have, we do have column, we do have grid intersections, yeah. So that's what we're using to place these. Oh, one thing I didn't do forgot to do, is to set the top constraint, but it looks like it went to level 2 anyway. We can double check that afterwards. I'll finish placing these columns. That's where I figured out that we needed a 10-inch diameter column. Notice how easy it is to snap to grid line intersections, so it's always good to have those. That appears to be a mistake. It's both a mistake in the drawing and the AutoCAD underlay. But we won't worry about a single inch. I think I'm done with columns. Oh, we have to change this one to around one of that diameter, 24. 24 is too big. Should be an 18-inch one. Again, type editor, duplicate. Let's make an 18-inch diameter, round. The family's a round column, so 18 inches. Okay. And that changed it straight away. Right? Go to your quick 3D view. It's missing. It's okay. We'll go in the project browser. No, we haven't created one yet. So view, 3D view, default 3D view. Notice we have column grid, columns all set up. They are, if I go to an elevation view, they all have a top constraint of 15 feet. The next lesson will deal with the outline of the walls. Thanks.